Hello, TruthSeekers. I pray and I trust that you are staying safe and well. We have been in this teaching collective titled Love Like This, where we have been learning a lot of helpful tips for us to not just survive, but thrive in our relational lives. So far, we've talked about how we need to order our lives and have priorities that are well set up even before we enter into our relational lives and thrive in those relational lives. We've talked about how we need to set up healthy boundaries that can truly help us be joyful and have a fulfilling relational life. In fact, last week, we've talked about sex and the effects of pornography. And if you have not listened to any of these messages or sermons, I encourage you to go back to our sermon archives and listen to them and implement the things that I have shared in those sermons. I'm pretty sure they're going to help you find joy and fulfillment in your relational lives. You can find our archives on our social media platforms, YouTube and Facebook, with the social media handle at TruthSeekers CA, at TruthSeekers CA. May God bless you as you continue to grow in your relationships and have a thriving, a fulfilling and satisfying relational life. Now, tonight, I want to talk to you on the topic, how to heal from a broken relationship. How to heal from a broken relationship. Turns out, broken relationships are very common. According to statistics, 52% of marriages end up in divorce. That is, 1 in every 2 marriages that you know, that you have seen around you, are going to end up in a divorce. They're not going to last. The average time span for a marriage is 8 years. That's the average time span for a marriage. Now, if you're following celebrity news, you probably would have heard about Kanye West and Kim Kardashian deciding to call quits on their relationship. Broken relationships are surprisingly very common. And how do we deal with broken relationships? We find that broken relationships almost always often leave us with a sense of grief, sorrow, regret, and even hurt from having been in one of those relationships. And this regret stems from whether these relationships have not lasted as long as we would have liked, or have lasted this long, and why in the first place did we even enter into these relationships. Now, if you think objectively about broken relationships, these relationships end up hurting us so bad when compared with other professional relationships that we used to have but we don't have any longer. For example, if you compare your relationship with your former co-workers, your former places of employment, your bosses, and the peers you used to work with, they don't bring so much hurt or pain or regret as much as broken romantic relationships do in our lives. Why is that? Why is it that broken romantic relationships have such a deep impact in our lives compared with professional relationships? Well, that is because of what we've been talking through the teaching collective until now. When we enter into romantic relationships, in our romantic relationships, we cross multiple boundaries. We cross physical boundaries, we cross emotional boundaries, and we cross spiritual boundaries. And we desire deep intimacy with a romantic partner. And because we cross many of these boundaries, we end up entangling our souls, our very own, with the other person. And when these relationships break, it's as though these pieces of duct tape that are so glued together are suddenly pulled apart. This ends up ripping apart the pieces of duct tape. This ends up ripping apart pieces of your own soul. And we find it so hard missing parts of our own lives. When we think about broken relationships, we feel as though our own lives have been lost. Parts and chunks of our lives are missing because of these entanglements that are suddenly cut off in broken relationships. How do we deal with broken relationships? How do we try? How do we even get to a place of being healed from our broken relationships? Well, I think we do take some common approaches. And the first common approach many people do take is time will heal. Time will heal. Does it? We think that over time, our broken relationship will fall into oblivion. And we choose to employ the passive approach where we either deny that we've ever had a broken relationship or we just pretend it has never existed and choose to ignore the pain and the hurt that comes from the broken relationship. And we try that over time, as days and weeks and months pass by, that we would feel better and would eventually be healed. We think time heals. But does it? Especially in our instant generation. We are living in an instant generation. Don't we want a quick fix for our relational lives? Well, we do think that at the press of a button, we get our food delivered, we get our rides scheduled, we get our groceries delivered. And so we expect at the push of a button, we get our healing that we desire. And it makes it so hard because we do think time heals, but we haven't got time to wait for it because of our own lifestyle that we live in. Another common approach we take to heal from broken relationships is to talk it out. To talk about your feelings, your pain, your hurts with other people. It could be your friends, it could be your family, it could even be your neighbors or your co-workers. And we think that when we talk it out with other people, we can find healing from our broken relationships. Now, it is true that when we do talk with others, we feel a sense of lessening of our burdens. We feel a sense of being relieved from our pain. Although that is true, we do realize that over time, we have never been actually healed, that we've been only addressing the symptoms of the hurt as opposed to getting to the root cause of what causes true pain. And part of the reason is because the other people that we talk with, the other people that we are trying to seek help from, they themselves have broken relationships in their lives. They themselves are hurting. They themselves are going through pain and trauma from broken relationships that they have encountered in their lives. So we find ourselves in a place where we are trying to draw strength and help from others who haven't received help themselves, who need help themselves. It's like the blind being led by the blind. How in the world could we ever find our place back? Time would heal, talking out would help, but we realize in our place, in our lives, the relationships that are broken are still causing pain and hurt. Today, I want to help you heal from broken relationships. Maybe it is your past ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend that has hurt you. Or maybe it is your ex-husband or ex-wife that has hurt you and left you with a broken relationship. Or maybe you're in a marriage that is at the verge of breaking apart. If that is you, I want to give you a short way of helping you overcome hurt from broken relationships. And that help can be found in the Bible from God Himself, who is the author of all relationships. Now, if you're listening to me, you might be thinking, what can help me from the Bible? Relationships are so 21st century with the complexity of relationships that we have in today's day and age, the extreme dating scenario that we have, the live-in relationships we have. How can the Bible help me heal from broken relationships? Well, I would like to argue that even though we have such complicated relational lives that we live in the 21st century, broken relationships are not new. People in the Bible, in biblical times, also had many broken relationships in their lives. And that was because in biblical times, the adult mortality rate was pretty high. There was constant battles going on between nations. There was inadequate health care. And many people lost their lives much earlier than today. And we find people lived in societies where there were many widows that have lost their husbands either to disease or to war. And these people had to deal with a lot of hurt and regret from their own past broken relationships. And there is quite a bit we could learn from how they found healing from their broken relationships. One such person I want to talk to you today is Ruth. Ruth is a person we find in the Bible. She lived in 11th century BC, 11th century before Christ. She lived in a place called Moab. I'm not talking about Moab in Utah. I'm talking about Moab in the modern Jordan. She lived in a time when Moab, the place, was at enmity with the land of Israel. Moabites and Israelites were in constant war with each other. It turns out Ruth, a Moabite, ended up marrying a person from Israel. Ruth's husband was an Israelite. And you could imagine in those times the sense of hatred that Ruth would have experienced from her own neighborhood for marrying the enemy. Now, Ruth's own family could do little to help Ruth. Ruth's husband was just reeling from the loss of his own father a few years ago. Ruth's mother-in-law was grieving the loss of her husband. Even though Ruth could find and muster courage to live in this marriage, pretty soon after, Ruth loses her own husband. Ruth's own husband and Ruth's husband's brother also end up losing their lives shortly thereafter. In about the span of 10 years, we see 3 deaths of adult males in this family. Ruth and her mother-in-law, Naomi, were living in a family without any male support. And you could imagine in those days, 2 widows trying to fend for themselves would have been extremely hard in a very patriarchal society. So how did Ruth find healing from her relational life? How did Ruth overcome all the brokenness and hurt that she was experiencing in the time she was living in? I'm sure the principles Ruth employed in her life are very applicable in our lives in 21st century. So we found out that first, Ruth travels. Ruth travels. Yes, you heard me. Ruth travels from her place. If you read the Bible, we find in the book of Ruth, chapter 1, verse 22. It says, "So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning." So we find Naomi and Ruth, they travel and reach Bethlehem, the place where Naomi's husband was from, the place where Ruth's husband was from. They go back to the place where their husbands have come from. In fact, they go backward from the journey that their own husbands have taken. Ruth travels. You might have heard that a change of place or travel could help fixing hurt from broken relationship. And there is quite a bit of truth to that. When you do travel, when you do have a change of place, it results in quite a bit of healing in our lives. And that is because of how we as human beings are wired. We in our brains have hundreds of billions of neurons that form a GPS in our brain. We have a positioning system, a global positioning system in our brain. And based on the location and the place we are in, these neurons, they fire. For example, when I stand in front of this camera and when I'm sharing the message with you, the neurons in my mind, which are called the pastor neurons, they fire. The pastor neurons in my mind, they fire and they help me share God's word with you. When I'm in a restaurant and I smell delicious food, the devour neurons in my mind, they fire because they make me devour and eat delicious food. Where we are, our brain fires accordingly. And so Ruth, she travels, and when she travels, she has an opportunity to overcome the triggers that keep triggering, reminding her of her broken relationship. If you remember the message I shared with you a couple weeks ago on ordering our lives, the first priority in our life is a place for us to thrive and flourish. Even before we meet the person in our life, God first gives us a place to flourish and to thrive. And for Ruth, she had to find that place elsewhere. It wasn't a place of Moab where she lost her husband, where she lost her father-in-law, where she lost her brother-in-law, but it was going to be a place in Bethlehem, close to Jerusalem, a place that is filled with people that have been experiencing healing from God. Ruth had to travel to a place to find healing. TruthSeekers as a community hasn't been around for long, but this is a place that you can find healing. This is a place you can find restoration and peace from your broken relationships. This is a place where you can thrive and flourish in your life, because this is a place where God is at work. The place where Ruth traveled to, Bethlehem, was a place where God was at work. The place she stayed in, Moabites, they were idol worshippers. They were people that were trying to worship all the elements of nature for every possible cause. If they did not have rain, they would pray to the rain goddess. If they did not have sunlight, they would have to pray to the sun to help provide sunlight and help the crops grow. If they did not have water, they would have to pray again to elements of nature. But Ruth travels to the land of Israel. They come to Bethlehem, in the place where God was at work. She comes to a place where she could find healing and restoration to her soul. How about you? Have you considered traveling? Have you found that place of healing and restoration in your life? It could be a community of people that you need to be surrounded with. It could be a new set of friends you need to have. It could be maybe a new workplace that you need. It could be a new place that you need to live in. Ruth travels. She travels to a place first and finds healing in that place. Well, we find not only does Ruth travel, we also realize that Ruth does something very interesting. Ruth not only travels, but Ruth forgives. Ruth forgives. If you read in the Bible, it says in Ruth chapter 1, verses 19 through 21, it says, when they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me, and the Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." We find Ruth's own mother-in-law coming back along with Ruth to Bethlehem in the land of Judah, and everyone around them are welcoming them. They were exclaiming, "Could this be Naomi returning back to this land?" But Naomi instead tells them, "Do not call me Naomi, but instead call me Mara." You see, the word Naomi means something that is pleasant, something that is pleasing. But Naomi tells her friends, her companions don't call me a person that is pleasing, but instead call me Mara. And the word Mara means bitterness. The word Mara is something that is distasteful. And Naomi, we could see, harbors a lot of bitterness, harbors a lot of regret and sorrow and pain. And she chooses to hold on to grudge. And in fact, she grudges against God himself. Naomi doesn't want to forgive. Naomi doesn't want to let go. Many people, when they are suffering with broken relationships, they do not want to forgive. They do not want to let go. They hold on to things. They hold grudge. They hold anger. They hold sorrow against the other person. But most often this sorrow, this anger, this grudge they hold on to ends up hurting them, ends up eating their soul away, making them never actually move on in the first place. Unlike her mother-in-law, Naomi, Ruth chooses to forgive. Ruth chooses to let go. Ruth left her family behind. Ruth left all the things she knew behind. In fact, her own idols, her own gods and goddesses. And she has come to a new land. She has come to be in a land where the God of Israel was being worshipped. The God of Israel was being revered. And Ruth chooses to forgive. You see, sometimes when we forgive, one of the persons that we need to forgive is ourselves. Most often when people go through broken relationships, they begin to blame themselves. They say to themselves, why did I ever end up in this place? Why did I ever give a chance to this other person to come into my life and ruin my life this way? Why in the world did I make these choices? Why in the world did I end up believing these people? And we harbor unforgiveness, bitterness, and grudge against ourselves. And the person we need to forgive sometimes is ourselves. With Naomi, she needed to let go and trust that God had better plans in her life. And Naomi needed to forgive herself. She isn't to be blamed for what has happened to her. And Ruth doesn't have to be blamed for what has happened to her. Ruth had to learn to just forgive herself and let go of her past. There is a lot to live for. There is a lot that God has prepared in ahead of time for Ruth and Naomi. But it begins with forgiving themselves, forgiving their ex, forgiving whatever circumstances they are surrounded with. A lot of Christians live in defeat because they choose not to forgive. Unforgiveness is a result of a lot of pain and sorrow that many people experience in their life. A true and a sure path to living a joyful, flourishing, and thriving life is learning to forgive. So we find Ruth travels, Ruth forgives. And not only does Ruth travel and forgive, we find Ruth creates. Ruth creates. We read in Ruth chapter 2 verses 2 and 3. It says, "And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, 'Let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor.' Naomi said to her, 'Go ahead, my daughter.' So she went out and entered a field and began to glean behind the harvesters." We find Ruth asks Naomi, "Can I go out and can I do something with my life? Could I use the skills and talents I have? Whoever is willing to employ me, I could employ myself and engage and produce and create something new." This is a deep secret for overcoming broken relationships, for overcoming pain and hurt from a broken relationship. Exercise your creativity. Start something new. And this goes against taking a passive approach to receiving healing. If you choose to receive healing, if you desire restoration from a broken relationship, you must create. You must do something new. You must engage your creativity to help you do new things. Pick up a new habit. Pick up a new endeavor. Pick up a new skill. Pick up a new hobby. Learn a new instrument. Do something new. Here we find Ruth. She ends up doing something new. Instead of sitting idle at her home, instead of wallowing in bitterness and sorrow and pain, she girds herself, gets ready, and goes out in an attempt to create things, to exercise her own creativity. In fact, as the story goes, she later finds a new person to marry at the place of her work while she was engaging her creativity. And the reason why creating new things is very therapeutic is because it goes against what broken relationships do. You see, when relationships break, they leave us with a sense of defeat. They leave us with a sense of destruction in our life. They leave us with a sense that we are worthless, we are not wanted, we are not desired, and we are not good enough for anything. Those are the deep-rooted feelings that we have when we have a broken relationship. But when we do create new things, when we do come up with new things, they go against the deep-rooted thoughts we have in our heart. Creating new things, in fact, shows us that we are capable of doing good, that we are capable of something. We are capable of producing things that are useful for you and for others. Ruth magically ends up exercising her creativity. Ruth creates. So we find Ruth travels, Ruth forgives, Ruth creates. Now, I want to give you a fourth principle that helps Ruth overcome hurt from her broken relationship. And that is, she tries it again. She tries a relationship again. Now, this is key to helping overcome hurt from a broken relationship. You see, many people, when they go through a broken relationship, they are left with fear of relationships in general. They are left with a sense of timidity when it comes to trying a new relationship. They find that their identity has been lost. Their identity, in fact, has been tied in that past broken relationship. But you got to realize that your identity is based on who you are, not on who you are with. Your identity is based upon who you are. It's not on who you are with. And it is true that people come in our lives and people go. And Ruth moves on. And when it is time for you, you got to move on. And you got to try it again. And you got to be open. You got to overcome that fear. You got to overcome that feeling that, again, things might not be okay. And be willing to try it again. Be willing to give it a second shot. And that can only come from a sense of hope, a sense of peace, a sense of things working out well. If we read in the Bible, we read in Isaiah, this is what God says. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 4 and 5, this is what God says. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. You will not be put to shame. Do not fear disgrace. You will not be humiliated. You will forget the shame of your youth and remember no more the reproach of your widowhood. For your Maker is your husband, the Lord Almighty is his name. The Holy One of Israel is your Redeemer. He is called the God of all the earth. God is your husband, meaning your protector, your provider. You will not be ashamed. Do not be afraid. Overcome your fear. Do not be afraid. You will not be ashamed. You will not be put to shame. For God is your husband. For God is your Redeemer. He shall help you overcome the reproach of your youth. Overcome the sorrow, the grief, the hurt, the pain, the anxiety that you have encountered from your broken relationship. And that comes from this knowledge that God, the Lord who made the heavens and the earth, is guiding you, helping you overcome pain and hurt from your broken relationship. If you are in that place where you have had hurt from a previous past broken relationship, well, God's bringing you to a place where He could give you that hope for a new beginning. You see, our God specializes in taking things that are broken and mending them and bringing a story out of them. Our God specializes in restoring broken lives. He's a redeemer. He is a restorer and He is a reviver. He specializes in bringing life from death. God brings light from darkness. God makes all things new. All things are passed away because He is making you new and He's making all things new around you. So be willing and trust in God to try it again. Engage in a church community. Engage in a community that is holistic, that is healthy, and that can help you heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's the way you could find true healing from your broken relationships. Broken relationships are common, my friend. And if you find yourself hurting from a broken relationship, we would like to help you at TruthSeekers. And here are some few next steps you could take to heal from a hurt from a past relationship. Well, first, maybe you got to forgive. You got to forgive your ex. You got to forgive the person that has hurt you. And that is a choice that you need to make. Forgiveness is a choice. You can't wait around thinking at some point time will heal. At some point I will overcome my feelings of sorrow and pain and hurt. As long as you choose not to forgive, you will keep having that pain. Sometimes the person you need to forgive is yourself. Nobody is perfect, including you. And you got to forgive yourself for the choices you might have made, for the ways you might have behaved. Choose to forgive. A next step, we encourage you to check out awesomemarriage.com. awesomemarriage.com. Therein you'll find a lot of resources to help you. Especially we recommend the podcast they have on building healthy relationships, especially building healthy marriages. awesomemarriage.com. Another resource we bring to you is to reach out to us. We are willing to sit down with you, counsel you, help you, talk through your issues, and get you the right help you need. You can do that by filling out this connection card, getting in touch with us, and we shall get you the help you will need. Fourth, as I've mentioned, finding a place to thrive, finding a place to flourish is key to thriving in your relationships. Why not join a small group of believers, a community of believers that would read the Bible together and help each other in this journey of life? You can do that by signing up at this link, finding a small group that can help you grow and thrive in your relational lives. As I've mentioned, we here at TruthSeekers are here to help you thrive and flourish in relational lives. Take advantage of all the resources we are putting out, the sermons we are putting out, and grow in your relational lives. If you have listened to this sermon and if you do not have a relationship with Jesus, I want to let you know, Jesus is our Savior. Jesus is the one who can save us from all of our hurt, all of our past, and can give you a new life. All it takes is welcoming Jesus into your heart. A relationship with Jesus will never hurt you. A relationship with Jesus will never lead to brokenness in your life. It will fill you, satisfy you, and flourish you in all your endeavors. Would you not make a decision to follow Jesus today? If so, pray with me. Let us pray. Jesus, I welcome you into my heart. I accept you as my Savior and my Lord. I believe that you have come to give your life for me and fill it with meaning and purpose. I welcome you in Jesus' name. If that is your prayer, you can begin your relationship with Jesus. You can join the church, let us know of your decision, and we shall get you plugged right in. Now, today, we are concluding our 4-part teaching collective on relationships. And we're going to start a brand new teaching collective the coming week. God bless you, and I shall see you next week. Here is our children's program. Watch and enjoy.
Wasn't that an amazing message that we needed to hear on how to heal from broken relationships from Pastor Sam? Now, here are some next steps that you can apply this message practically in your lives to get better. First step is to forgive. Go to God and ask God, would you forgive me for holding back the forgiveness? And ask God to forgive you and for you to forgive those who caused bruise and hurt to you. Number 2, check out this resource, awesomemarriage.com. There's a podcast there and lots of helpful resources. Now, if you need any help in this area and you're struggling in this area, please fill the connection card and reach out to us. We can get you connected to a counselor and we'll be praying for you as well. So fill out your prayer request there and reach out to us. You see, there's no shame, there's no embarrassment. Reach out if you need help. And number 4, I want to tell you, my friends, life is better in community. Life is better in groups.